Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Shepherd's Bush in West London to Chiswick. This ride takes about 20 minutes and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes. Making this same journey by public transport would take about half an hour, so it is quicker to cycle, and thanks to some brilliant new infrastructure along the route, which you'll see in a second, it's also extremely pleasant. If you find this video useful, or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to hit the bell icon and subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new ones just like it every week. Alright, let's get going. So we're starting at the junction of Uxbridge Road and Shepherd's Bush Green, and you want to use this toucan crossing to go on to Shepherd's Bush Green itself. There are some nice wide paths here on which you're allowed to cycle. Although they don't get too busy, they are shared with pedestrians, so do be courteous to other people using them and try not to ride too quickly. We're using the paths to travel from the northwest corner of the green to the southeast corner, where we'll be able to get to a crossing which will lead to a quiet route down south. That backstreet route connects to Cycleway 9, which is a new cycleway running east-west across West London, and also the redone Hammersmith Gyratory. That will lead us into Chiswick High Road, and we'll end up somewhere near the west end of that by Turnham Green. So we're coming up to the cycle crossing here, and it's an old one, so it's quite a strange design. You wait for the green lights, and you can see that in the opposite direction it comes in at a bit of a zigzag, but it's fine. This first section of Rockley Road looks a little bit wide for my liking, but just as soon as you go past this no entry sign, there's a contraflow entry for cycles here, it starts to get a little bit more backstreety, and it is generally quite quiet in these streets. Unfortunately, the layout of the streets isn't particularly logical, so there are a lot of twists and turns here, and I do recommend that if you don't know your way, you download the map of the route, there's a link of that in the description on YouTube, and you can use that on any map app or device of your choice. There's one particularly irritating thing about this backstreet route, and that is that it's not actually quite symmetrical. That's because not all the streets have two-way cycling on, although nearly all of them do, annoyingly. So in the opposite direction, you actually have to follow a different route up a different set of one-way streets and pick your way up. Those streets will be Addison Gardens, Richmond Way and Minford Gardens. They are more or less the same as these streets, but it's quite frustrating because there's actually only a very short section of this southbound route which isn't two-way. It's Blythe Road for literally about 20 metres. If anybody from Hammersmith and Fulham Council is watching, please install a contraflow accept cycles sign on Blythe Road. It shouldn't cost too much, but it will definitely open up this area to cycling a lot better than it currently is. Now, at the end of these streets, you go onto the raised table here, and then you cut across Brook Green. There's actually a separate pedestrian and cycle path here, which I quite like to see. Although the surface of the path is weirdly spongy, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine, and it's nice to see it separated from pedestrians. At the end of that path, you turn left, and then there's another, again asymmetric set of streets, including Luxemburg, spelt the old way, Gardens. And these streets could really benefit from contraflow signs as well. In the northbound direction, you'd want to take Rowan Road. To be honest, I'm sure that a lot of people do just illegally cycle the wrong way up the one-way street, as it's perfectly wide for two-way cycling. But it would be nice to make that official, and also maybe even signpost it with a bit of wayfinding so that people knew that you could connect from Cycleway 9 up to Shepherd's Bush quite easily. Now, at the end of this street, we want to turn right on Hammersmith Road. First, though, you need to cross the road, so wait for a gap in the traffic and go to the other side. You'll note that we're actually just cycling in a bus lane in this direction, and you can see that in the other direction you do get a lightly protected cycle lane. But we quickly turn off the bus lane and we go over this toucan crossing. You are allowed to cycle there, you can see the cycle symbol, and you wait for another crossing, and this here joins onto the two-way protected cycle track through the Hammersmith Gyratory. Now, this was only finished last week, and I think it's brilliant. It's really good. It protects you, and it's also extremely quick. You might be used to waiting at sort of protected junction schemes for ages. Often you have to wait a long time at the light, and although I've cut out the waits here as I always do, I rode up and down this street through this gyratory pretty much all day this weekend, and I can tell you that you usually get a green wave through at least half of it. You don't really have to wait too long, It's not frustrating at all. I'm really pleased with the signal timings on it. It's a real game changer, and I'd love to see more like it across London. This drops us onto King Street here, and you can see we've got a two-way cycle track, and loads of people are using it today. It's really, really cool. Lots of people out just doing their shopping, or maybe just going for a ride. I understand also there's a plan to extend the two-way protected cycle track to the other side of the Gyratory as well. So eventually on Hammersmith Road, where we were in the bus lane, you won't need to use the bus lane. You'll just be able to go two-way protected cycle track, just like we have here. And you can see loads of people make use of it. It's a really good scheme. I reckon if you count all the people cycling in both directions on this cycleway and you count all the individual private cars on the main carriageway, I think even though this isn't commuter time, this is just a weekend, you'll probably have more people cycling than actually there are cars on the street, even if it didn't look at first glance, because cars take up a lot more space. This is Cycleway 9, and there are plans to extend it all the way out west to Hounslow and Brentford, which will be fantastic. And Transport for London and pretty much everybody I've ever spoken to who's ridden a bike in West London also wants to extend it east through Kensington High Street, and that would connect it into the rest of the London cycle network and give you this great connection from various places in West London all the way through to the rest of London. You could go to North London, you could go to East London, you could go to South London, protected lanes. High Street Kensington is the big gap, and unfortunately the council, Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, won't allow it. They're against it. That's really sad, because this is really good and it should frankly be on every high street. And I think that's one thing that's really interesting about it. I think it's quite special in a way, because most schemes in London that are this good they tend to be in the sort of central business district of the city, or maybe they run down a sort of a main artery. I'm sort of thinking the Embankment. I'm kind of thinking Cycleway 4 down towards Bermondsey. But out of all of the ones that have been built, I think this one really is one that really connects up a high street. To an extent, Cycleway 2 does a bit as well through Whitechapel. But it doesn't really have the same two-way track thing. And as a result, you just get so many people using it for clearly doing their shopping and popping between shops, and using the side roads to get to where they live. And I think that's fantastic. I'd love to see more of it. It's a really, really high quality scheme. Today, apart from riding from Shepherd's Bush to get to it, we are mostly just riding up and down the trunk of the scheme, down Cycleway 9, through Chiswick High Road, through Hammersmith Road, and through the Gyratory. But I've got plenty of videos planned, and I've actually already got some footage using it as a trunk route, but branching off. So going to other places like Acton, Ealing, maybe Putney Bridge, that kind of thing, Fulham. It's all possible with the help of Cycleway 9 and the Gyratory. If you're wondering what's going on the left, by the way, that's Chiswick Antiques and Vintage Market. It's a once-a-month thing on Sundays. If you just Google it, you can find it. And it's quite good fun. Go down there and you can see people sort of have stalls and sell their antiques, and you can find some interesting stuff there. And as you can see, it's absolutely huge. You can wander around it for ages and find all sorts of things. You can see that this cycle track is largely built with temporary materials, so you've got those plastic ones. These curbs here, the white and black ones, they're actually filled with sand, I believe, and bolted down. But it feels really high quality. The design is just expertly done, and I think it shows what can be achieved with temporary materials. It is just very well engineered. But we're coming to the end of the ride now. That was about 3 miles, 5 kilometres, and I have to say I'm blown away by the new Cycleway 9. I think it's brilliant. Thank you very much for watching that, guys. If you enjoyed it, please do hit subscribe, and don't forget to like the video on YouTube as well, as it does send more people here. And leave a comment below and let me know what you think of it. And I will hopefully see you guys again next time. Thanks very much.